Cast on French President Emmanuel Macron's state visit to India. Today is day one of the two-day visit and the French president is in Jaipur. We are counting down to a road show between various landmarks within the pink city of Jaipur, and the whole city is visible in its full splendor just ahead of the road show, and we are standing by for the road show to begin. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be joining French President Emmanuel Macron for that very shortly. That is going to start. The French president is here in India as the chief guest of the 25th Republic Day celebrations. He will be witnessing the Republic Day parades as it takes place at Kartavya Path in New Delhi on the 26th of January, which is India's Republic Day. We are discussing the significance of the India-France strategic partnership and the significance of the visit of President Macron to India, and also what personalized diplomacy has really done in taking this relationship forward between India and France. Professor Gulshan Sachdeva, who is professor with the School of International Studies in GNU, an analyst, is with us. Professor Sachdeva, there's so much more in this relationship than we've just discussed. We've discussed defense and civil nuclear energy so far. And one key aspect is trade. Some would say that trade is currently below potential. There are also EU and India FTA talks which are currently on. So do you think that a lot really rides on these talks, because a lot of the trade and services volume can go up if things really fructify, and perhaps President Macron can bring his own weight to bear on these talks to expedite them and make them more fruitful?
Well, you're right. In fact, in so many areas we have worked together. We have really strengthened. We have solid partnership in those areas. At the same time, there are areas where we really need to work very hard. And trade and those are the issues, and investment. I think these are the areas where I think definitely much below the potential. I mean, the French economy is roughly, almost of the same size of the Indian economy, slightly smaller. The second largest economy within the European Union now. After Germany. After Germany, because the UK has left. But if we look at our trade figures with France, the last few years, it's only about $10 to $12 billion every year. Only last year, it has grown to about 14 billion or so. And there are also certain petroleum exports, etc., which have gone last year because of, changes. But, this is one area where things are not really, you can do it just bilaterally. Because here, as they're very much part of the European system, European economic integration, it means the competencies are very much within the Union and also with the member states. So we are negotiating 3 separate deals with the European Union. We have one negotiations on trade, one negotiation on investment, and the third separate negotiations on the geographical indications. So we have been doing it since 2007, and in 2013 it was frozen. Again, when Prime Minister Modi had meeting with the European leaders in 2021, then the negotiation have restarted. Since then, we have, I think, 4 or 5 rounds. The next round is going to be next month. Yes. So things are very complicated in that sense. But this is one area, and obviously, as the very big economy in Europe, and if you look at our trade, in fact, you look at some other countries, like Netherlands, Belgium, actually is more than France. And even if you look at our neighborhood, I mean, look
India's trade with Bangladesh is said to be more than India's trade with France. Yeah. So perhaps injecting momentum is what President Macron can do, because
I mean, these meetings, bilateral meetings, which, I mean, there are certain very serious issues, and those negotiations are on, because you're negotiating not just only trade about goods, there are also services. You're also talking about investment, your procurement, so many issues.
That's why very complex negotiations that take time.
But actually, we really need to push those things.
Okay.
And apart from trade, I mean, there are other issues. I mean, we had an agreement on mobility and migration.
Yes, we'll come to that in a bit. Let's get some more perspective now from Ambassador Mohan Kumar, former Indian ambassador to France. Ambassador Kumar, I've been waiting to hear from you, especially on your personal anecdotes. You had retired in 2017, the same year that Emmanuel Macron became French president for the first time. So tell us, how keen was Prime Minister Narendra Modi to meet him, and how he ended up becoming the first leader outside Europe to meet President Macron after President Macron took over?
Thank you very much, Moon Moon, for having me. Always a pleasure. No, I think it is indicative. I've spoken about this. Happy to speak about it again. It is indicative of Prime Minister Modi's style of what I call investment in personal diplomacy. He does it with a certain number of leaders. Obviously, it's not possible to do it with all the 192 leaders of the world. I thought he did it first with the Japanese leader, Shinzo Abe. Extremely unfortunate that he passed away. But I could see that as I was leaving Paris, the insistence with which the Prime Minister's office and the Indian side said, okay, we would like to pay a visit to see this young leader in Europe. I thought it was a clear indication about two things. One, Prime Minister Modi was taking a long term bet on Macron that he would stay. And I'm happy to say that most of the time, this Prime Minister's bets turn out to be true. I mean, I thought he's already lasted 7, 8 years. He's got another 3 years to go. So it's clear that Prime Minister made a long-term bet on Macron. The second thing that the Prime Minister did was, I think he wanted to quickly indicate to the new president of France that no matter who is president, and we welcome Macron, of course, the relationship is going to outlast presidents and prime ministers, and that there is consensus in both countries that this strategic partnership is important. So that's the second message he managed to give to Macron. I also thought, and I've written about this, I thought they got along like a house on fire, which was not obvious because of the difference of age. I was interested in seeing two things. One, it was the very beginning of Prime Minister Modi's career as a prime minister. So it was interesting to see what he would do in the international arena. He was a great communicator domestically, and he had taken India by storm. You still have to wait and see how prime ministers do in the international arena. And that was important for me. The second thing was, I thought it was very clear that we said France matters to India. We are not going to forget that France was the only country which stood by India in 1998. And you know, Indian memories are very long and the files are long. Everybody knows. We pass on this to ambassador after ambassador who goes to Paris. So I think all in all, it was a very, very good start to the two leaders who since then, I'm happy to say, have developed a very close bond.
Yes.
So much so that they can really pick up the phone and talk about things which very few leaders can really talk about. So
absolutely.
that's
you know,
really
I would want you to stick to the foundational aspect of this personal chemistry. Tell us about that anecdote of how Kautilya's Arthashastra was gifted by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to President Macron.
So, you know, whenever a president or a prime minister comes to a foreign country, one of the things which the ambassador has to do is, and to be fair to the prime minister's office, they're very democratic about this. They ask the ambassador, listen, can you tell us something about the president so that we can locate and identify a suitable gift? So I was going around asking whether he listens to Bollywood songs when he has time, or whether he watches Hindi movies. That's the standard thing to do. But that wasn't the case with President Macron. Then I met one of his advisors who said that, listen, he's always been interested in strategic philosophy, how different countries tackle strategy. And he let it be known to me that he, in fact, did his master's thesis on Machiavelli. And he said he was very struck by books like The Art of War by Sun Tzu. So I immediately thought to myself that the classic book on the subject in India is Arthashastra. So I thought that that would be a good gift. Fortunately for me, the Prime Minister's office accepted my suggestion. We were able to locate an English translation of Arthashastra in a beautiful leather-bound edition, which the Prime Minister then explained and gave it to President Macron, which I'm pretty sure he has read page to page. So that's the way we figured out what to give to President Macron.
Yes, and your book, India's Moment, is also out. So, of course, another must read, I must say, page to page, to borrow from, the expression that you've used. But, Ambassador, talking of the all-party consensus in both India and France particularly, when you were serving there as the French ambassador, did you sense that all-party consensus? Can you tell us, for instance, about what Marine Le Pen thought about the relationship with India?
No, I'm happy to report that there is absolutely an all-party consensus. I remember talking to Marine Le Pen once, and at that time, there was no realistic prospect of her coming to power. But she nevertheless thought it important to convey to me as the Indian ambassador that, listen, please tell your leader that we welcome his election as Prime Minister of India. We would like to reiterate our support for the Franco-Indian relationship, and that we will do everything possible to contribute to the government of the day strengthening this relationship, because she made it very clear that the multipolar world will work only if India becomes a power. This is, by the way, the exact statement we say from India, which is that multipolar world can become a reality only if Europe becomes a pole. So she made it very clear to me. Through my colleague, of course, I had no way of going to the meeting, but my colleague said exactly the same thing that I've just said, which is there is a consensus here that this partnership is a partnership for the good of the world and for the good of France. On our end of the spectrum, I've spoken to leaders of the Congress Party, even the Communist Party, and they say the same thing. They say, listen, we have this relationship which is completely devoid of contention. There is no domestic politics when it comes to relationship between France and India. You can't say the same thing, Munmun, about, for example, the strategic partnership with the United States. There are some parties in India, like the Communist Party of India, which don't look upon this favorably. So I think from that perspective, I am absolutely convinced that there is an all-party consensus on both sides that this is a relationship which matters and which is important for both countries. My only point would be, and I think that is where, if you allow me, I'd like to introduce the third pillar of this strategic partnership. There is a partnership for sovereignty and security, which is the first pillar, partnership for the planet, which is the second pillar, but the partnership for the people, I think, Munmu, we have a lot of work to do in India. There is not that much of knowledge about France in India. Even among my students, I keep telling them, why don't you look at France as a place to study?
But isn't that a project that is close to Mr. Macron's heart? Because I think he is now targeting 30,000 Indian students by 2030 there?
Not just targeting. He has told, I am aware of this, he's told the ambassador and the embassy here that you have to achieve this target. And they've got consulates, they've got Campus France, for example, has got offices in India. They are now reaching out to students and telling them that, listen, we've got campuses in France, not just Paris, but two things need to be disabused among Indian students. One, that you need to speak French fluently before you reach Paris. Simply not true. Okay. I think the French have reluctantly agreed that even though French is a far more beautiful language than English, English is what rules the roost. So they have accepted that. A lot of classes are in English. But yes, you have to take up French as a language and learn the language. And I always jokingly tell my North Indian friends that if you don't learn French, we will send you to Tamil Nadu and make you learn Tamil. Yeah.
Ambassador,
so they will learn French.
Thoughts.
So that's simply not a problem, I think. But I think the second thing is
Ambassador, just hold your thoughts. We are getting visuals of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. A bear hug between the two leaders, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron. They share a great chemistry that is on display once again. These are precincts of Jantar Mantar in Jaipur. Jantar Mantar is an astronomical observation site that was built in the early 18th century, and this is the most significant, most comprehensive and the best preserved of India's historic observatories. It is an expression of the astronomical skills and cosmological concepts of the court of a scholarly prince. He was the Prince Jai Singh II at the end of the Mughal period, and this includes a set of some 20 main fixed instruments. So a guided tour is being given to French President Emmanuel Macron of the various instruments that are installed here at Jantar Mantar. They are monumental examples in masonry of known instruments, but which in many cases have specific characteristics of their own, and hence a guided tour is necessary. And look at the chemistry between the two leaders. Prime Minister has called Emmanuel Macron, the President of France, as a very special friend to him. He said "friends forever" in his response to a post on X that in 2022, when India had just started its G20 presidency in December, President Macron had tweeted his support for Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, the world is one family, the theme of India's G20 presidency. And we've seen over the years, particularly since 2017, when President Macron took power in France, that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has gone all out in cultivating a very personal connect with President Macron, from deciding to gift him Kautilya's Arthashastra after knowing that President Macron specializes in Machiavelli and so knows a lot about philosophy, to making sure that he was the first leader outside Europe to meet President Macron, to hosting President Macron in Varanasi in 2018 on a Nav Pe Charcha or a boat ride, where President Macron saw the depth of an Indian epic like Ramayana. There were Ram Leelas and other performances that were there for him. He saw the work of various Indian artisans there as well. Today, too, at the Amer Fort, he did interact with artists as well as students. And this, of course, is President Macron's third visit to India. He was here last year as well as a guest who was invited to India's G20 presidency, the summit that happened in September. And this is his third visit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been to France 4 times under the presidency of President Macron. So theirs is a very special relationship. In fact, in the last 6 months, they have met 4 times, 3 in physical formats and 1 virtually. So the two leaders meeting for the first time during this current visit of President Macron in Jaipur at the Jantar Mantar. And talking of Jantar Mantar, we were saying that this includes a set of 20 main fixed instruments. They are monumental examples in masonry of known instruments, but which in many cases have specific characteristics of their own. This is an astronomical observation site, and they were designed for the observation of astronomical positions. With the naked eye, one could see them. Through Jantar Mantar, they embody several architectural and instrumental innovations, and through the impetus of its creator, which is the Prince Jai Singh II, this observatory was a meeting point for different scientific cultures, and it gave rise to widespread social practices that were linked to cosmology. It was also a symbol of royal authority through its urban dimensions, its control of time, and its rational and astrological forecasting capacities as well. The observatory is the monumental embodiment then of the coming together of the needs which were at the same time political, scientific and religious in nature. So the Jantar Mantar, in other words, in Jaipur, is an outstanding example of the coming together of the observation of the universe, of society, and of a lot of beliefs. It provides an outstanding testimony of the ultimate culmination of the scientific and technical conceptions of the great observatory designed in the medieval period. Also, it bears witness to a very ancient cosmological, astronomical and scientific traditions shared by a major set of Western, Middle Eastern, Asian and African religions over a period of more than 15 centuries. So that's about the significance of Jantar Mantar, a key astronomical site really in Jaipur. So let's take our discussion further. Ambassador Kumar continues to be with us. Ambassador, back in 2015, we saw a Nav Pe Charcha that happened on the Seine River in France. That time, it was President François Hollande. Then we saw President Macron in Varanasi in 2018. Again, a Nav Pe Charcha. And this time, they are doing a road show, which is yet to begin. But they've chosen to meet at Jantar Mantar. Your thoughts?
So I think this has been Prime Minister Modi's style, starting with, I believe it began with Obama. He likes to choose a setting which is indicative of the cultural ecosystem of the place, and then believes in the two leaders interacting in a very casual, informal atmosphere, free of the delegates and so on, maybe just with interpreters present. And then they can talk freely about subject matters that interest both countries. So he has always felt that we must have one such item on the agenda when a president visits. You can choose the Louvre in Paris, you can choose the Arc de Triomphe in India. Of course, if you are in Ahmedabad, you can choose things, and if you are in Jaipur, you've chosen the Jantar Mantar. So I think this is very typical of Prime Minister Modi. The other thing indicative of this Munmoon is that Prime Minister Modi is not particularly keen to have these visits in Delhi, frankly. Only to the extent that you have to have the banquet dinner in Rashtrapati Bhavan tomorrow. So, and obviously the parade has to be in Delhi. So he likes to, obviously President Macron will have to come to Delhi. But otherwise, right from the beginning, when he assumed power, we understood that it must be a whole of India approach. There are other cities which are equally beautiful, and they must be exposed to foreign leaders. This has been his outlook. And he believes that sprucing up the cities, improving the infrastructure of the cities to receive a foreign leader is something that will last the visit. It will outlast the visit. So even after Macron leaves Jaipur, whatever improvements have been done around Hawa, Mahal or Jantar Mantar will be of benefit. So this has been the outlook of Prime Minister Modi. And I think I very much appreciate it. You will remember, even with Xi Jinping, he met in Mahabalipuram, in the south of India. And that is something, again, Prime Minister Modi believes that all parts of the country should get equal importance. And that India is really much more than Delhi, is the point I'm making. So I think that is, for me, the real significance of Jaipur, Jantar Mantar. Of course, the other thing could be also that the French, I mean, I used to issue close to 600, 700 visas a day. Would you believe it? Tourist visas. Almost 400, 500 of them were only for Rajasthan and Kerala. Don't ask me why. The French love Rajasthan and they love Kerala. So they would take the visas, and I would ask them, are you going to, Mumbai or Delhi or Calcutta? They would say, no, we are going straight to Jaipur. I said, okay, but how many times have you visited? 10 times. I said, you're going to Jaipur for the 11th time. Why don't you see other parts of the country? No, we are very happy. We are very happy with Rajasthan. Similarly, the same thing with Kerala. A lot of French tourists you will find in Kerala. So that may also be a reason why I think Jaipur has been chosen.
And let's get our viewers up to speed with the visuals that are running on the screens of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron at the Jantar Mantar. Well, the Jantar Mantar is a famous solar observatory established by Maharaja Savai Jai Singh. We can play out the visuals once again of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron, because this particular site is also a World Heritage Site declared as one by the UNESCO in July 2010. It is an exhibit of India's expertise and scientific progress centuries before independence, and so that says a lot about India's heritage. Also, it includes a set of 18 instruments and is the biggest stone observatory in the world. It consists of various instruments which include the Laghu Samrat Yantra, which is a sundial that can help to calibrate local time to an accuracy of 20 seconds. This is all pre-independence. The triangular wall, which is placed in the north-south direction, has quadrants on either side. The shadow of the wall moves equal distance and equal time intervals on the quadrants. This movement is calibrated to read the local time. So that's how local time was read at that point in time. The western and eastern quadrants are divided into subdivisions, each of 6 hours for the morning and afternoon segments respectively. And each hour is divided into 4 15-minute divisions, which are subdivided into 5 minutes and 1 minute divisions. So that was the kind of precision that was used to assess local time. Each 1 minute division is subdivided into 3 divisions of 20 seconds each. The sundial, which is used to determine the position of the sun in the hemispheres, it is made in 2 parts. One depicts when the sun is in the northern hemisphere and the other depicts when the sun is in the southern hemisphere. The shadow of the iron rod depicts the local time of Jaipur city. The largest sundial in the world, which shows the local time with precision of 2 seconds, is here at Jantar Mantar. So this is the importance of Jantar Mantar, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi is currently there alongside French President Emmanuel Macron. The first meeting during the 2-day-long state visit of President Macron to India. Well, Professor Gulshan Kumar, your thoughts on the visit to Jantar Mantar?
Yeah. No, I think, I mean, you have given the explanation of the importance of Jantar Mantar, and I think Ambassador Mohan Kumar has, in a very excellent way, summarized what, the way Prime Minister Modi is choosing different destinations and different locations. But I think the key point is that, I think the way Prime Minister has chosen not just only Jantar Mantar this time, but there
are many more to come.
There are many more to come.
Yes.
Basically you are, of course they may be discussing about Jantar Mantar and the intricacies of that particular place, but I think this also gives a plenty of space when as I think Ambassador Mohan Kumar was mentioning, when you do not have advisors, there are many things which perhaps they would be discussing there, which we are not fully aware of that, because some of the key perhaps decisions are taken at that particular moment of time. Because this is in fact, later on when you read the memoirs of some of those leaders and, some of the other stories, anecdotes later when they come, some of the key decisions, even if all the negotiation of certain things are done, but then at the moment when you actually make certain deals or certain decisions. And I think this is what I think the importance of some of these meetings are. And of course, this also showcase your own diversity. This also showcase the scientific temper of, historic India. At the same time, different places. And of course, it also later on, now so many other people would also perhaps be more interested going to Jaipur. So this is the kind of, I would say, importance of some of these meetings which have taken place.
Absolutely. Ambassador Mohan Kumar continues to be with us. Ambassador Kumar, we've discussed about mobility and we've discussed about the personal chemistry between the two leaders. In terms of the strategic depth of the relationship, what is it that we can expect during this visit or in the near future? What are those big takeaways that you would want when talks take place at the Rambagh Palace in Jaipur tonight?
So I would have to begin by saying that the ballast for this relationship is defense. No question about it. I mean, there are so many things that are now on the agenda. And to just give you an example, the French side will want to know what is happening to the acquisition of 26 naval aircraft Rafale, or Rafale naval as they call it, or marine Rafale. We've already bought the Rafale for the Air Force. I think there is a bid by the French to sell 26 naval aircrafts Rafale for India. And I think the French would want to know where we are in that regard. And that is something that will be the first on the agenda. The second will be the making of the Scorpion submarines by the Mazagon Docks Limited. And 3 more submarines are to be built in India. What is the progress in it? Munmun, I just want to say that it is good that we are focusing on the Navy, and there is a reason for it. The Houthis are attacking ships in the Red Sea. I have always maintained that in the future, wars are all going to happen in the maritime area. Notwithstanding Ukraine and Gaza, I would have to say the maritime area is very important for India, especially the Indo-Pacific, especially now that France has decided to extend the theater from just the Indian Ocean to include the Pacific theater as well. So we will need more submarines, we will need more naval aircraft and so on. So that is the second. Third, and I think the most exciting for me, is the joint development of a combat engine by France and India, but the engine will be made in India. I have made the proposal that we should involve the United Arab Emirates as well. We have a trilateral grouping, India, France, and United Arab Emirates.
Yes.
And if we can rope in the UAE as well, these aircrafts can be made in India, not just for India, but also for UAE, Qatar, and Egypt. So not only do you achieve the goal of an Atmanirbhar Bharat, but as the Prime Minister keeps saying, this is make in India, not for India, make in India for the world. So that is what we should be targeting. And last but not least, we have a number of issues in space. I would like to put space at the heart of this relationship. Not many people know that as far back as 1960, the only space agency which cooperated with the ISRO was France. And we have now taken space to a completely new level. There is a space dialogue. With very few countries do we have an institutionalized space dialogue. And I think the time has come for, it is not inconceivable that in the near future, you have joint exploration of the space by Indian and French astronaut. That is not inconceivable at all. In fact, that is what...
Yes, but we are already looking at partnerships as far as Gaganyaan is concerned, also explanatory missions perhaps to Venus and Mars together, aren't we?
Exactly. So, this is an area where really both countries can benefit enormously. I want your viewers to know that space is not just about landing something like a Chandrayaan or landing rockets and getting a lot of leverage and brownie points. The materials used in these aircrafts have got spin-off applications for industry.
And many of those equipments have been supplied by the French Space Agency to ISRO, isn't it, in the past?
Absolutely. So, space, in fact, the Horizon 2047 document, which I would encourage all your readers to read if you're interested in the Franco-Indian relationship, you should take a look at the Horizon 2047 document, which talks of space being at the heart of this relationship. Lastly, I think from a substantive point of view, climate and energy is something the French take very seriously. So what is happening in that area, the nuclear, for example?
Isn't green hydrogen the new thing there? The decarbonized hydrogen?
Yes. World leaders in hydrogen. So you've got nuclear, you've got green hydrogen. And remember that International Solar Alliance, although India leads it, it actually leads it with France. It was jointly launched in 2015 on the sidelines of the climate change conference when I was ambassador, and we launched it in collaboration with France. France said they would like to jointly launch this initiative with India. So we have 90 odd countries now which have ratified the International Solar Alliance. The French would like to know how much more to push. One of the exciting things that the document Horizon 2047 talks about is a triangular development cooperation fund. And I want to take 1 minute, if you allow me, which is India and France combining with third countries to do things in Africa, to do things in Indo-Pacific. So typically in a triangular cooperation, you've got a developed country, a developing country, and then you've got a typical recipient country, which could be a least developed country or whatever. So Triangular Development Cooperation Fund was conceived last July. The question now is that how much funding can both countries provide for this Triangular Cooperation Fund so that these can be given to a lot of littoral states in the Indian Ocean region for achievement of SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. So a lot of exciting things. I would be quite happy if there are no more new decisions, but if massive progress is made on decisions which the both sides made in July last year. So many decisions were made. And therefore, the time has come now to really put those ideas into practice. And that, to me, is, I would call this an implementation summit, if you allow me. I'm sure new ideas will come. But for me, the key in assessing this summit will be what has happened since July. And I know that only 7 months have gone by. That's not a long time in the life of bureaucracies and governments. But nevertheless, I think we should take advantage of the presence of Macron in Delhi or India to push for certain things. And remember, Moon, we are meeting at a very, very difficult time in the world, frankly. You've got Ukraine, on which President Macron will brief Prime Minister Modi about what they think. You know, it's time to think about the future when it comes to the conflict in Ukraine.
Can the two
I
leaders
don't
then
think we can.
be the key to unlock a future in the
Yes,
context of the Russia-Ukraine war, particularly?
Yes, I absolutely think so. I've said openly that if there are two leaders who can mediate in Ukraine, it's probably Prime Minister Modi and President Macron. It would be a lovely idea to do that. I don't know if the time is right, but you've got Ukraine, you've got the Houthis and Red Sea problem, you've got Gaza. France takes a very rational view, even in the case of Ukraine, but particularly in the case of the Palestinian issue. So it would be good for the Indian Prime Minister to hear from President Macron. It's interesting. Both these leaders now are veteran statesmen. At the time when they met in 2017, when I was ambassador, both of them were relatively new, I have to say. President Macron much newer than Modi, Prime Minister Modi. But now 6 years, I mean, this is a long time. They are now veteran leaders, even when you compare them to people like Biden. They have spent much longer at the helm of their countries. So as senior statesmen in the world, I think they have a duty to think about how to resolve Ukraine, how to look at the Palestinian issues, and take it from there. This year is the year of elections in the world. Half of humanity is going to the polls, and including India, of course. But that is something that President Macron will be interested as well. So all in all, I think I've said this to you before. You will have a bilateral segment which will be devoted to bilateral issues,
and
then
regional
you've got
tensions, global issues.
Yes, and
all
then
of that would be part of the mix.
Of course, you've got multilateral
Okay.
agenda. So the agenda will be completely full. But I agree with the ticker on your screen, which I can see, that defense cooperation tops the agenda. That just about sums it up. Yeah.
Oh yes, and we'll see glimpses of the Rafale also flying in the fly past on Kartavya Path. So let's broaden this up. Professor, I like the characterization of Ambassador Mohan Kumar, that see this as an implementation summit. So much was discussed and so much was decided upon in July 2023 when Prime Minister was in Paris. And now is the time to focus on the implementation, to fast track things, to expedite things, rather than wait for maybe fresh announcements. What do you think?
Well, I think that's the difficult part because, many things have been identified for years, and some of things have been kind of agreed, delivered, particularly in the defense sector, but many others, as we discuss in trade, I mean, we have been negotiating this FTA for years. At the same time also in mobility. And then, in between what happens...
But some of these projects also have a very long-term gestation period.
At the same time, there is also political mood changes in the countries. Like, yes, I mean, both are veterans, as Ambassador Kumar was mentioning. But, you just go back 3 or 4 years. Within Europe, after Angela Merkel, when she was moving out, it was really thought that Macron is going to take the leadership not just only of France, which he has taken, but also leadership of Europe. And his famous statement that NATO is in coma or something, but now suddenly things have changed in Europe, globally, and also in France. Now France today is totally divided country. You also have both the expansion of right and also of the left. So, and he has also lost majority in parliament. So it means many things which actually he could have implemented, say, 2 years ago, things are much more difficult. Even on, say, for example, migration and mobility. We agreed, we signed.
Well, these are visuals of a live road show that is taking place in Jaipur. People have lined up on both sides of the streets. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron waving to people who have gathered there on the streets of Jaipur, the pink city of Rajasthan. And these are special moments that are playing out, special moments in diplomacy as well. There are women particularly that you can see lined up on one side of the street, an open air vehicle. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and French President are together in that vehicle, waving to the crowd that has gathered there, and look at the kind of excitement, the adulation that they are receiving from the people of Jaipur. There are cutouts of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the French President as well that are lined up on the streets, showing the bear hug that has become quite famous now between the two leaders. And they are moving from Jantar Mantar, we believe, to Hawa Mahal now. And there'll be a lot of stops in the process. From Jantar Mantar, they go to Hawa Mahal, as we are saying, and then to Sanganeri Gate. That is what we understand. And then they go to Albert Hall. So this is going to be a not very long road show, but at the same time enough to get the adulation of people, and the red carpet has really been rolled out for French President Emmanuel Macron. The two leaders share a very special friendship, a very special relationship. Prime Minister Narendra Modi made sure in 2017, when President Macron came to power for the first time, that he became the first leader outside Europe to meet him. So the Prime Minister is fond of President Macron, and President Macron is fond of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. They have supported each other's diplomatic decisions as well. For instance, when India decided to have Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, or the world as one family, as its theme of the G20 presidency, it was President Macron who had tweeted his support for it, and Prime Minister Modi responded to that tweet saying, "Friends forever." So that shows the depth of the strategic partnership between India and France. It's a 25-year-long strategic partnership, 25 years of strategic trust between India and France. And we are also looking ahead under Horizon 2047 to the next 25 years. Look at the excitement that is quite palpable on the streets of Jaipur. People have come out and they are totally excited, having got the opportunity to catch a glimpse of the two leaders. And these visuals are going to go down in history, because Prime Minister Narendra Modi has made personalized diplomacy a hallmark of his foreign policy. It is not just frenetic diplomacy that we've been seeing since 2014 particularly, but also very personalized diplomacy at the same time. Correspondent Jessica is with us. Jessica, we are looking at these visuals that are playing out on the screens, the two leaders together in an open air vehicle and waving to the crowds, and the people are totally excited. This is another chapter in the India-France strategic partnership and also in their personal friendship, isn't it?
That's correct. And if you look at the spectacular visuals around, we've been seeing people coming in since the afternoon, while the scheduled program was to be held at 6 p.m. A lot of crowd gathered with posters of Emmanuel Macron, waiting to catch a glimpse of the French leader who's never visited Jaipur before this. Remember the last time he was in India, he had gone to Agra, but this time here's in Jaipur, and quite a spread laid out for him. Right now he's at the road show. Accompanying him is also the French delegation, etc. And we're looking at how this goes forward as the relationship between the two nations advance over the years. As you said, 25 years of strategic partnership and still going strong. There's a lot more that the two countries are doing apart from just defense. And at this point, the kind of friendship at display is significant and symbolic of the future that lies ahead, and the roadmap for the two countries that of course would be successful.
Yes, absolutely. And after the roadshow, Jessica, we expect talks to happen at the Rambagh Palace. What is really on the agenda? Is it limitless, so to say, or would you say that this is more of an implementation summit, because so much was decided upon last time around in July 2023 when the Prime Minister was there, and now is it time for implementation of those decisions?
Well, yes, the meeting now after that moves ahead to the bilateral talks at the Taj Rambagh Palace, where we can expect certain outcomes when it comes to space and defense cooperation, and of course the visa issue that could come up later, not certain at this point, the EU-FTA trade deal that has been hanging in the balance for a very long time. Some movement there could be expected in the evening, and of course then tomorrow the French president will be at the Republic Day celebrations. But for the moment here, the city feels welcoming the French president with its charm. And right now, after the roadshow finishes, we can expect certain outcomes that would perhaps give us more clarity as to what key deals have been signed.
Oh, absolutely. Jessica, let's tell the viewers once again about what really is happening. The two leaders, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the President of France, waving to the crowds that have gathered there. They are totally jubilant, having got the opportunity to get a glimpse of the two leaders. And people are out on the streets despite the cold weather. They are extremely excited, visibly excited, seeing the two leaders together in an open vehicle. So let's go back to May 2017. Emmanuel Macron had just won the French presidential election at the age of 39. He became the youngest president in French history. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi's view of Macron was that this is a young leader who's just been elected in France. And PM Modi was keen to be the first overseas leader outside Europe to meet him. And he succeeded. And look at how the relationship has moved from strength to strength from 2017 to 2024. This shows a genuine commitment on the part of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to cultivate a strong friendship with President Macron, much like many other leaders. But this particularly is a special friendship between the two leaders. They are deepening the India-France strategic partnership in a unique way, in a way that also involves the people of the two countries. The Modi-Macron chemistry is simply great. It is on display, and they will soon become the longest-serving leaders of the world too. Prime Minister Narendra Modi came to know that President Macron had done his master's in philosophy from a very reputed educational institution, SPO, and that his specialization was in Machiavelli. And so he made it a point that when he met Macron for the first time, the first gift that PM Modi presented him was an English translation of Kautilya's Arthashastra, because PM Modi knew that Macron is an intellectual and takes interest in philosophy. So that is how you cultivate a personal relationship with a world leader. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has always pulled out stops when it comes to diplomacy. He's always thought out of the box. And this is yet another example of an out-of-the-box diplomatic thinking of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In 2015, you would remember that Prime Minister was in Paris and he had enjoyed a boat ride with the then President Francois Hollande, who was President Macron's predecessor. That was on the Seine River in Paris. That was called Nav Pe Charcha. So every now and then we see Prime Minister making sure that there is some sort of nobility in the way he conducts his diplomacy. And let's take that question to Jessica. Jessica, we've seen over the years how Prime Minister Narendra Modi makes it a point to have some novel intervention. It could be Chai Pe Charcha, it could be Nav Pe Charcha, it could be a road show. You know, it could be seeing a particular performance together. It could be ensuring that the culture of every state is reflected in India's G20 presidency. So is this really another unique aspect of Indian diplomacy that we are seeing play out?
Well, absolutely. Strengthening of cultural ties has been one of the key aspects of the diplomacy, that India puts forth. And ever since the French president's visit, we've been seeing that at this moment. We could also expect the French president, we've been told, who's going to make a payment via UPI at a chai stall in Hawa, Mahal in just a short while from now. And that would be interesting to sort of give a symbolic significance to India's digital, infrastructure space, which the French delegation would also focus on in the talks on how to enhance the digital infrastructure. Apart from that, we are at the roadshow right now, and Munmun, there is absolutely spectacular crowd right now, and we could expect more at this point. But for now, the cultural ties remain strong, and that has been a key aspect of not just the French president visiting India, but for many of the foreign leaders who arrive are given, but not many are given this kind of a stage or a ramp to walk on. But at the moment, the French president is getting a huge applaud from the crowd here.
What a reception from the people of Jaipur for French President Emmanuel Macron, and yet another instance of how Prime Minister has brought in very unique and out-of-the-box thinking in the way he conducts his diplomacy. From Chai Pe Charcha that started in 2015 when President Obama was in Delhi at the Hyderabad House. The two leaders had Chai Pe Charcha. They walked along informally. So Prime Minister is a great believer in informal settings, in forging very strong personal contacts and leveraging them for stronger relationships between India and other countries, and in increasing eventually India's heft in a new world order. That Jessica has been telling us that we expect Prime Minister and the French President to stop the road show for a while for a Chai Pe Charcha. That is, the two leaders could come together for a cup of tea. And that again underscores the humble beginnings in a way of Prime Minister, that his approach is rooted in humility and he is somebody who identifies with the common man. These visuals speak a lot in terms of the very unique aspect of Indian diplomacy that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has in a way made a very, very prominent part of India's foreign policy. So flower petals being showered on the two leaders, people waving at them with so much energy. There's so much excitement among the crowds. People are taking photographs. There are selfie moments. There are cutouts of the two leaders. They are all dotting the streets of Jaipur today as the two leaders do a road show together. These are visuals that are also reminiscent of what we had seen several years back in Gujarat and Gandhinagar particularly, when the then Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was in Gujarat. The two leaders had a road show, and these visuals reminiscent of that, and these are special moments that are really preserved for special leaders. They are reserved for special leaders. We've seen a very strong relationship with late Shinzo Abe that Prime Minister Narendra Modi shared, and a similar strong special relationship being visible now between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Emmanuel Macron, the President of France. We've seen the two of them enjoying a boat ride from one ghat of Varanasi to other when President Macron was in Varanasi in 2018. That was another state visit. A very special friendship this is, the India-France strategic partnership. In fact, in the Western countries, France was the first country with which India had a special strategic partnership with the two. Yes. So let's get some perspective now. You know, how are you looking at the way the roadshow is playing out, the excitement among the crowds? There are people who've lined up on the streets. There's so much energy that we're seeing on the streets of Jaipur today.
Well, I think, you know, the Prime Minister Modi is quite used to these roadshows. But President Macron would be definitely thrilled with what is happening today, because he is, as I was mentioning, facing certain difficulties both inside France and also at the global scale. And you know, within France, I think his visit to India also would be watched very, very keenly. You know, because the last, I think his visit, very important visit when he made to China, was not very successful. So he would like to really go back to France with very successful India visit. With all these visuals and also, you know, maybe perhaps certain major new announcements. So this will also give him something very important, I would say, you know, fill up within what is happening in domestic politics within France. So in a way, as we were mentioning, this is a very unique way Prime Minister Modi is really deepening India and France's strategic partnership. I mean, there are already such a solid partnership, and then when you add all these kind of elements into this, that really strengthened the personal relationship, at the same time also the strong, I mean, the trust between leaders and the nations. This is how you build brick by brick. This is how this whole the partnership is all about.
Yes. So the roadshow is on. It started from Jantar Mantar, then Hawa, Mahal, and then this is going to go till the Sanganeri Gate, which is a heritage area of Jaipur that is painted pink, which gives Jaipur the pink city sobriquet. So the roadshow playing out as we speak. These visuals are going to go down in history. This is a very special chapter in the India-France strategic partnership, a partnership that is 25 years strong. You're also looking ahead to the next 25 years. France is the only country that has been represented so many times in India's Republic Day parade. President Emmanuel Macron is the sixth French leader to be here as chief guest of India's Republic Day parade. Also a reciprocal gesture because Prime Minister Narendra Modi was the chief guest at France's National Day or Bastille Day celebrations on the 14th of July last year. And this confirmation from President Macron to be the chief guest at India's Republic Day celebrations, the 75th Republic Day celebrations on 26th of January this year, came at very short notice. Again, that shows that there is a lot of reliance and there is a lot of comfort in this relationship, and perhaps the two drivers of this comfort in the special partnership or strategic partnership are the two captains that you are seeing on the screens, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron. Well, you know, we've seen, Professor Sachdeva, that Prime Minister has taken diplomacy out of New Delhi, out of Hyderabad House. He believes in informal settings. He believes in reaching out directly to the people. Is this yet another instance of that?
No, this is a continuation as we have been discussing. So I think, but you know, this is really a new, I would say, achievement in Indian diplomacy, where you are also bringing more people into diplomacy, taking to different places in those kind of settings, and trying to strengthen those partnerships. At the same time, there also has to have certain substance in this partnership. That's why these things will matter. I mean, it's not a a simple matter that the French president has just, even at the short notice, he agreed to come to India. So it means that also shows the strength of this partnership,
yes.
And of course the personal ties between.
Okay, let me tell the viewers about the visuals that we are playing out on the screens. This is the exterior of Hawa Mahal. It is Jaipur's magnificent, iconic landmark. It is considered as one of the most iconic attractions of the city, and the two leaders are adorning that. It's a 5-story building. It looks like a honeycomb of a beehive. It is always windy inside owing to the numerous windows and jharokas. If you've been to Hawa Mahal, you know what is being talked about. The amazing ventilation that the palace enjoys is the reason why it is named as Hawa Mahal in the first place. So what is Hawa Mahal? It literally translates in English into the Palace of the Winds. So the main purpose behind the construction of this palace was to allow the ladies of the royal family and the court to observe the busy streets of the Johari Bazaar from the many jharokas of the palace without being seen themselves. So this is why the structure was designed in this particular way. The Hawa Mahal is a 5-story building. It is the tallest building in the world that has been built without a foundation. So this building has been built without a foundation. It has a curved architecture that leans in fact at 87 degrees. It has a pyramidal shape which has helped it stay erect for centuries together. So this is an architectural marvel, and it is being visible today in its full splendor. The Hawa Mahal is dedicated to Lord Krishna. It is said that the shape of the building resembles the crown of Krishna. More than a palace, the Hawa Mahal is also a cultural and architectural marvel that reflects a truly harmonious amalgamation of Hindu Rajput and Islamic Mughal architectural styles. So this is a unique fusion of the two architectural styles. The Rajput style can be seen in the domes, canopies, and the fluted pillars, while the stone inlay filigree work that you can see and the arches are perfect depictions, in fact, of the Mughal style of architecture. So the two leaders adorning Hawa Mahal, an architectural wonder, and the roadshow has reached there. We expect the roadshow to conclude at Sanganeri Gate, which is one of the 7 famous gates of the walled city of Jaipur. Jaipur is the pink city. It is also a UNESCO World. It is on the UNESCO World Heritage List too. So much adulation for the leaders is what one can see. There's an outpouring of emotions and love for the two leaders. These are special moments in any strategic partnership, in any diplomatic relationship. 2047 will mark 100 years of diplomatic ties and 50 years of strategic partnership between the two countries. These two countries have stood by each other in the most difficult of times. In 1998, when the Pokhran 2 tests had happened during Atal Bihari Vajpayee's regime, we saw how France stood with India. It decided not to join the United States in its bid to impose sanctions on India. And this relationship has only moved ahead from strength to strength. Both the countries believe in strategic autonomy and in independence and in multilateralism. And this relationship is going to get stronger with time. They are partners in the Indo-Pacific, and they have similar views on a lot of regional issues and global issues as well. And they are extremely full of intent when it comes to taking this relationship forward in substance and form. That's it in this special broadcast. News and updates will continue on DD India.